Hello and welcome to another episode of the Future Hospitality Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Wells, joined today by co-host Dustin Myers. We are partners at Longitude, a hospitality branding and design group. At Future Hospitality, our goal is to interview the brightest minds in the industry, gathering insights, ideas, and inspiration to share with you. If you enjoy the podcast, please be sure to leave us a review. Thank you for your support. All right, Dustin, we're back.
We're back.
It's been a long hiatus, about a little over a year and a half. We've been busy though, right?
Just a little bit.
Yeah, it's been a whirlwind over the last, at this point, close to 2 years. As many of you know, if you were a listener, our last podcast was in January of 2023. So since then, Dustin and I have been still running Longitude. Longitude's still going strong. Still doing some great work with some great clients. But if you didn't know already, we also have become hotel owners ourselves. So it's been quite the journey. A lot of lessons learned, a lot of fun times, a lot of hard times through that. But today we're going to kind of reboot the podcast, Future Hospitality, kind of tell the story of the last couple of years and kind of the journey of ours becoming hoteliers. So we're excited to kind of have that conversation. It's a little different format today. It'll just be me and Dustin kind of talking through this. So forgive us if it's a little awkward at some points, but we're doing our best here. So, but yeah. So Dustin, do you want to kind of tell everyone about the last year and a half, 2 years with the hotels we've been involved in and what's going on there?
Yeah. Again, this is a kind of an interesting episode where we're sort of interviewing each other. But I think it'll be fun to go through kind of the journey, share that with you guys, and you can kind of see what's on the horizon for us. But yeah, it was about 2.5 years ago or so. We had been kind of playing with the idea of becoming owners in some type of hospitality concept for quite a while. And just as we were trying to become the best hospitality branding agency that we could be, we knew that having hands-on experience on the other side of it would be very informative and just kind of help build our expertise in the industry. So that had been a thought swirling around for quite a while. It began to take shape when Jeremy sent me a Slack message of a hotel in Branson, Missouri that had just been listed for sale. And it's a really cool little roadside motel alongside a creek. And I had actually stayed there with my son a couple years earlier, so I was familiar with it. And so when he sent me that, I was intrigued, and it didn't take too much convincing to at least take the next step and see what it would look like to reimagine, re-envision that place. So yeah, Jeremy, what was some of your inspiration that led up to that moment?
Yeah, I think, just as you mentioned, you and I, over the last 6 years since I joined as a partner at Longitude, the first, I would say, probably 2 years of that time was really dialing in who we are as a team, who we want to be and what type of projects we want to be involved in and who we want to, know and be and kind of swim in the same pond with, so to speak. So, in that time frame, we started realizing that the hospitality industry and the hotel industry had a lot of great opportunities for brand development for the type of work that we did. It was really creative, very engaging. There was a lot of ways to infuse what we do into the guest experience, into programming, into design of the space, and in a lot of different ways. So we, like you said, we grew an affinity for that kind of this category of hospitality. And, through that, we were consulting, we were providing service for all sorts of clients, all these great, hoteliers all over the world. And, you and I just were having discussions of like, we should do something like this in our own backyard. And, especially in the Midwest where we live in southern Missouri in the Ozarks. And, there's not a lot of really great boutique, independent, kind of cool brands happening in this space. So that's kind of what spurred our thoughts and kind of motivated us to invest in our own backyard and make something special. If for no one else, for us. And so kind of in that same time period, once we kind of came to that realization and were solidified in that thinking, I decided to get my real estate license just because I wanted to learn more about the real estate side of investments and just, the ins and outs of that. Specifically, I was kind of more interested in commercial real estate. So I just, I read a lot of books, I studied a lot, and then I ended up actually getting my real estate license. And right around that time period, I was really, just scouring MLS system and, looking for opportunities. I was looking on Crexy, on LoopNet, on all these different, websites, and this opportunity came across. And like Dustin said, it felt like it had really good bones. It was a 101 room roadside motel called Fall Creek Inn in Branson. Dustin and I were both, very familiar with Branson already. I think we saw the opportunity there. It's just, there was a lot of baggage as well with Branson, just that market and kind of what Branson, its history and kind of what it had become. But we saw a light, I think, in that, we saw also what Branson could be and a more, I guess, bright future for Branson and younger and youthful and modern future of what Branson could be and should be in our mind. So long story short, we saw this property and we're like, man, this has all the great bones and elements of, and at that time we admired some brands, like Anvil Hotel in Jackson. We got to visit that and see that in person. There were several brands. What were some of the other brands that kind of inspired us? You visited some
Coachman
too, I think.
and Lake Tahoe and Base Camp in Boulder.
Yep.
Some of those, the bunkhouse stuff.
Yeah.
Really, the podcast provided a lot of the inspiration that we needed to be able to take this leap.
Yeah, that's true.
Getting through our clients that we get to work with and seeing these really cool concepts along the coasts and in these mountain towns, and then coming back home and seeing such a large tourist demand and yet really untapped potential for cooler concepts. But yeah, I mean, the podcast guests that we've talked to over these years really inspired me that like, okay, this is something that you can actually do, hearing those stories. So
yeah. And it was surprising to me, several of the guests I remember, we would always kind of ask them about their background in hospitality, how they kind of gotten there to where they are, and many of them, they kind of had, I would say, maybe a more traditional route to it. Maybe they, went to Cornell and, kind of got a degree in it. They started maybe in finance or investments or asset management or things like that. And that was kind of their pathway. But there were several actually that had a little different route to it where they had no background in hospitality growing up or and even going through college or they didn't have a degree or anything like that. But it was just more of a, an endeavor of passion, I would say, and maybe just some, finding yourself a little bit, I guess. I don't know how to word it, but just like, you learn to love hospitality. And we've written about this too on our blog, and we've talked about it on our podcasts. But it's like this hospitality. We don't view it really as I don't view it as an industry. I view it as more as like a mindset and a way of kind of living and a way of engaging with people. And so, I think that's part of the love that we have for it, and we've grown for it. And it just affords you a lot of ways to be creative, to make an impact on not only your guests and the experience they have, but also in the community you're in. And, especially with the property, the Ozarker Lodge, the property that we developed in Branson, That's had a really positive influence on the community. I think it's sparked a lot of creativity in that area too. And there's other brands in the market too that are doing this, but, more youthful energy, a little bit more modern view of Branson and the Ozarks. And so that's just really exciting. I think that's one of the, things that have been really awesome to see since we got there. But it was definitely a long journey getting to that point. And I remember even after, going back to that, you mentioned I found the property and sent you the link, but there was a lot that even went into getting the deal together and making it work. So I don't know if you want to kind of talk through some of the challenges we had there and what that was like. This would have been, let me think, November 2022, I think, when I first found it, and then sent you the link, and then we kind of
21.
Was it 21?
Wouldn't have been?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It would have been 21.
And then we closed the next June or July. Yeah.
But in that time period, that was like a 6 or 8 month time period. So what was that like?
Yeah. Well, being branding guys, we pretty much jumped straight into the concept development, and the property just lended itself to this kind of outdoorsy, nostalgic lodge. I mean, it's situated on Fall Creek, just this beautiful bluff in the background. And so we started thinking immediately of like, what's the concept? What's the narrative? One of the things that was obvious to us from the beginning is that in our travels, a lot of times when people find out we're from Missouri, they're just like, we kind of get the idea that there's a perception of nothing cool is going on in Missouri, and just
they're
fly
like,
over.
Is that Minnesota? Or they like, is that, they don't even know where it's at usually.
Like misery.
And all they know is the Show Me State. They're like, oh yeah, the Show Me State.
Or they're like, oh yeah, Ozarks.
Oh, yeah,
that was a cool show.
Yeah, the
terrible
Netflix
place to live. And so I wouldn't say we had a chip on our shoulder, but we did have a desire to showcase like the Ozarks is a beautiful place, and there's a lot of really talented people doing high quality stuff. Even so much that we named the development company Flyover Developments, just to kind of take ownership and take pride in where we are and what makes the Ozarks unique. So, kind of the concept for the Ozarker Lodge was, let's show off the best of the Ozarks. And we did that in a lot of different ways through the people we partnered with, and we can get into that a little bit later. But all that to say, we started with the concept first, and that made it so much easier for people to kind of catch the vision, and it really helped the conversations up front. Although I would say they weren't completely easy still.
Yeah. Those early conversations, I think it was November 2021. You and I, we visited the property and kind of got a tour with the broker and the current owner. And I remember just walking through, I didn't honestly even know what I was like really looking for. I was probably just, in the mindset of like, okay, I've bought a home before and I've walked through a home, so I'm just going to kind of look for like, drywall cracks here and there. Like, I don't even, I had no clue what I was like. I was just like, it looks cool. Like it seems like it's in good shape. I think the previous owner had some, some pride of ownership in the property. So the bones of it were good. And we toured it with another friend of ours who he was a developer too. And so he was giving us some tips and kind of just helping us, in addition to putting together the concept and the brand and some preliminary thinking on that, he was helping us think through kind of the pro forma, what a budget could look like, kind of asking some of the right questions. Because again, Dustin and I, like, we know branding, we know, like hospitality, hotel branding and design, but didn't know the first thing about development or investment or hotels or anything, the ins and outs of that. So that was super helpful to have our friend with us. And he was actually, originally he was planning to be a partner in the Ozarker. And so he had helped us put together an LOI, and we were getting ready to get an LOI signed and actually have the purchase agreement signed. I think this would have been January or February of 2022. And so we had all the paperwork done. We had already kind of come to a verbal agreement with the broker and seller, and getting ready to send it over. And this was probably like a day or two before we were going to send it over. My friend reached out to me, and he's like, "Hey, I just got too much on my plate. Like, this is a cool project. I think it's going to be successful, but I can't be a part of it." And Dustin and I were like kind of devastated and kind of lost,
Yeah, we'd spent months working on this deal, and it felt like we were married to it. Like, this thing had to happen.
Yeah.
And he was the guy that was going to make all the numbers work and actually bring it to fruition.
Yeah.
So when he had to bail, we just looked at each other and we're like, can we still do this? Is there any
I remember
forward?
we went out. I think we went out to coffee or something, right? And we were just sitting there looking at each other like, what do we do?
Yeah, because as soon as we signed that contract, then we were under the due diligence period, and we had to start shelling out money for just the different surveys and all of that stuff to keep the deal moving forward.
Yeah, we had to put in earnest money down too,
and we were basically tapped out with the earnest money deposit.
Right.
So I looked at Jeremy. I'm like, "What's your plan for how are we gonna pay for all of this stuff and actually keep it going?" And Jeremy's just like, "I have no plan." I was like, "Okay, well, let's do it then."
Let's do it. So we trucked forward without really a plan. We ended up sending over the PSA, the purchase agreement, to the broker. Everyone signed it. We put up the earnest money down for it, and we were under contract. I think the price was, if I recall, about $2.8 million. And so, as a part of the contract, we had basically 90 days to figure it out. If we can get the deal to work, if we can get it funded, if we can get investors on board, if we can, really do this thing. And at this point, it's just me and Dustin, because, like I said, our other friend had kind of, needed to bail a little bit on the project. And so, we basically, right after that was signed, we hit the ground running. And like Dustin said earlier, we had built a lot of great relationships through the podcast and just through the work we were doing at Longitude with all these, incredible clients. And so we called and emailed several of our people that we had good relationships with. And we had a lot of different discussions with a lot of people, a lot of ideas swirling around about how we might approach this. Some people were trying to push us towards, doing like a brand, like a soft brand, like a Choice Hotels soft brand or something. And some other, there was just a lot of ideas, and we were just like, we don't know what we're doing. But thankfully, one of the conversations we had was actually from a past guest on our podcast, Stephen Chan, and he's with Eagle Point Hotel Partners. Him and Eric Warner are partners there. And Stephen, I think, after we had that preliminary conversation with him, and he actually offered to fly out, a week later and actually tour the property with us and tour the Ozarks. He had never been to the Ozarks. And so, but, thankfully we had a relationship with him through the podcast, through ILC, Independent Lodging Congress. And he trusted us enough to fly out to the middle of nowhere, so to speak, and let us pick him up and drive him around. That tour was pretty fun, though. Do you remember that?
Yeah, Dustin? we were trying to be strategic about what do we let him see, and try to ease him into the Branson culture, because there's a lot of cool things happening in Branson, but there's still a lot of residual baggage from decades past that some might refer to as hillbilly hell. So we're like, oh man, Steven's from San Francisco. He's going to think this is just terrible or something. But so we were kind of strategic about how we eased him into the culture, but he immediately saw the opportunity and had a lot of faith that there was something here and there was something cool that could be done. So it was really cool to get him on board. And
the cool thing about Steven, I mean, he's just an awesome guy in general, and really thankful to have him as a partner now. But at the time, it was even more exciting because Steven with Eagle Point Hotel Partners, and we mentioned this earlier, Anvil Hotel, like that's one of their properties, and that was like one of the properties that probably one of the bigger inspirations for the Ozarker.
Yeah, as well as Base Camp.
And
that
Base
was
Camp,
also a big inspiration.
And so just the fact that, he had already had properties in his portfolio that were very similar type of product to what we were wanting to build. I think that so basically he came out and visited, did the site tour, spent a couple days with us, and then he flew back to San Francisco. He's like, give me a few days to think about it, kind of, talk with the team and mull it over. And I think it was about a week later, we had another phone call, and he was like, yeah, like I'm excited about it. I think there's potential, let's move forward. And so that's that kind of spurred us and gave us some new, some new energy into it. Because we were kind of, at some point, I remember, at least I was like kind of feeling hopeless. I'm like, there's no way this is going to happen.
Yeah, we'd had several conversations that just didn't go well and felt like we were striking out with some people. And it's hard to find the right person at the right time, because a lot of people were like, man, this is a cool opportunity, but the timing isn't right for us. So we can't be a part of it. And so after several of those, it started to feel like, man, we're just going to have to bow out and try to get our earnest money deposit back and let this dream die. But yeah, once Eagle Point was excited about it and committed, it was a really good feeling, because it felt like, man, if this thing has a chance, then it's going to make it with their help. So
if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be Steven and Eric helping us. So it was great too, and it's been a wonderful partnership with them. And I think one of the strengths of this partnership, in our mind, and kind of thinking that, especially in hindsight, looking back, Dustin and I, again, very inexperienced, had no clue what we were doing, but we were very, we could excel in developing a brand and a story, and the programming and design of a space, thinking through the experience. And Steven and Eric do that well too, even without us. But I think the strengths that we bring to the table on that front, paired really well with Steven and Eric's background, and just they have a ton of experience they brought to the table. So just it worked out really, really well. And kind of the division, the divide and conquer of how we split our duties and focuses. I think that was one of the key elements of the success of the Ozarker and how it actually came to fruition. But basically, again, after that week, after he toured it, the week after that, he said, let's go. And, we just hit the ground running at that point. I think if I recall, it was, we needed to fine tune the numbers again, kind of get some more dialed in numbers. We had already kind of had a preliminary budget and kind of our best take at a pro forma, some numbers. But, once Steven got involved, we started to really refine that. And we had to, the clock was ticking. So, I think at that point we might've only had like 60 days to figure it out, because it took us several weeks to finally get a partner on board.
Yeah.
So, we had to get the deck into a strong position. You and I were working really hard on the content of that deck, the telling the right story, doing demographic research, market research, star reports, digging into those, making it all presentable, getting all these numbers it was like a 30-page, presentation with like, I don't even know how many rounds of revisions we went through, but, we had to get it to a point where we could present it to lenders, we could present it to investors, and start to have those conversations, get people excited about it. And so I don't even know how many people you and I talked to. Again, we just went back to our network and friends and colleagues and just people we had worked with, people on our podcast, people that we met at ILC or just other places, like just anybody and everybody we thought might be interested to be involved with this. And Steven was doing the same with his network. And, I think the investors, I don't want to say it came easy, but I do think there was a lot of people. Generally, like everybody we talked to was super excited about it. But like you said, I think it was more of a timing issue for a lot of the investors. Like it just wasn't good timing for them to get involved with it.
Yeah.
I think the more challenging part that we were aware of is like, how are we going to get the financing for this, and how's that going to play out? And so, you know, I don't know, the financing, the lending part was a little bit more challenging, I would say. I don't know what your thoughts were on that, but
yeah, a lot of the investors that we talked to were interested, excited. It was hard to get them to like put their name down for real until we had some yeses from other people. Then it's kind of like a snowball, but it was hard to get that started. So we did start to get some yeses, and then we got an anchor investor that took a nice size chunk, and that gave other people a lot more confidence. And then he also had a relationship with a bank that helped a lot, just kind of smooth out that process because of his track record with them. So, yeah, it was kind of a slow start, but once it started rolling, then we ended up having more people that wanted to invest than we had room for.
Yep.
Which was cool.
And I remember getting close to closing. I'm trying to remember exactly what happened, but there was something that happened like the week of closing. And I feel like this is something that always happens.
It's like a security breach at one of the banks, wasn't it?
No, that was on the Parker. This was on the Ozarker. It was something with like the owner. Like it wasn't like there was some signature he needed from a family member and all this. And I don't remember the details, but like it was like, you know, we were ready to hit the ground running and get everything going and like close on it. And our investors had already come in, and the loan was already coming. It was just like all of a sudden this wrench got thrown into the plan, and it was like, is this going to close now? Because like there was basically something with like the seller wasn't the only seller. There was actually another family member who we didn't even know about through this whole process, and it was just kind of threw us for a.
And our management company was on site, ready to do the transition. Yeah. Like there's a lot of wheels in motion for all of that to go. And then we're like, all right, well, we'll just have to like take over and then lease it back from the owner until we can get this straightened out.
Yeah, but thankfully, I don't even remember how it all transpired. But basically, long and short, I think it ended up being fine. I think we were like one day delayed. It ended up being, but
there was a bank holiday that week too. I remember that was an issue.
So we finally closed on it. This would have been June of, I guess, 2022, right?
Yeah.
And then we alongside our management, third party management company that we put in place, Springboard Hospitality, they took over at that point, and we ran it as Fall Creek Inn from that point forward until through third and fourth quarter of 2022, and just tried to optimize everything and get as much cash as we could during the before we had to shut down and go full on renovation mode. But during that time, from June through November, December of that same year, we were working a lot with the architect. We started engaging like the design team, the GC, getting everybody prepped and on board, getting all the drawings, getting all the plans,
permits in order,
all this stuff that needed to be in place. And we basically had, the clock was ticking at that point, because now it transitioned from, okay, we've acquired the property, we closed on the property. Now it's ticking until next busy season of Branson, which basically begins Memorial Day, of the following season. So we're like, we had to really hurry if we're going to do this big renovation. We had a lot of plans, but we were aiming to hit Memorial Day of 2023 as reopening as the Ozarker Lodge. But there was a lot that happened over that.
Yeah,
it was about a year process it ended up being, but
we were very aggressive with the construction timeline, because we were basically trying to start in November and have it done by April, May. And we were completely overhauling 102 rooms. We ended up getting an extra room with the renovation. building on a lobby with like basically a functioning restaurant and kitchen in there, completely overhauling the back part of the property with a landscape designer, putting in a new pool and like a pavilion for live music. And we built a natural playground too. So it was just like basically every piece of that property was getting a major overhaul, and we were trying to do it in just a few months. So that was stressful. Like every second counted.
Yeah.
Like I remember we were watching our emails, just like refreshing every like few minutes, because if something came through and needed to be addressed, like we didn't even have a day to spare.
Yeah. And Dustin and I, at this point, we, in the partnership between Dustin and I and Stephen and Eric with Eagle Point, we were the boots on the ground in Branson, in the Ozarks. We live in Springfield, so it was about a 40-minute drive for us to get down to Branson and be there. And so, we were kind of wearing the hat. We were wearing the hat of project manager for this project at this point. And so we, in addition to, obviously the GC was, had their subcontractors and had their scope of work, but we were basically on every call related to construction, design, management, anything operations related, food and beverage.
Yeah, all the shipping. We had custom furniture built for every room.
And we were just trying to keep things moving along. And like if someone was waiting for something and from someone else, we had to was constantly just like badgering people, basically like being the squeaky wheel and just trying to keep things moving along, keep it, everyone, getting what they needed on time. There was a lot of different delays and things. And like Dustin said, our original timeline was, reopening April, May. But it ended up getting pushed back. We didn't actually open until, I think the official opening was like July 1st of 2023. Yeah. And that was due to a lot of different reasons. I think some of the reasons, like I know that there was some delays with the furniture. There was several case goods and furniture items that were delayed, not only through the design and actual manufacturing of the case goods, but also wasn't there there was
like a strike at the port, I think.
Some like union strike at the port.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
So all of our furniture was built, shipped, and just sitting in a container somewhere on the coast of California while we're stressed out trying to get everything figured out.
And our poor procurement guy, Dave, I'm just like literally like texting him every single day, like any update, like what's going on? Have you heard any update? Like,
we're like watching the news, trying to figure out if they can settle this strike.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So that was one delay. There was several kind of unforeseen things too, whether it be like structural issues. I remember there was some structural things with the lobby, the new lobby and kind of restaurant space we were building, and just getting, the engineers out there and getting their drawings, like, what we had hoped was only going to take, a week or so, ended up taking like 3 or 4 weeks to get the drawings and everything we needed for that. So, and there was several other things, I think delays are to be expected in construction. So I don't think we were too shocked by that, but we were definitely eager to reopen as the Ozarker, because again, June and July are like peak season in Branson. So every single day that you miss being open and not being able to book rooms, like you're just losing money basically. And I remember actually we had a tentative date opening. I think we were planning like mid-June or something. And so we had preemptively, this would have been, I think, back in May or something, we opened up our books for people to start booking mid-June. And because we were confident at that time, but then, another delay with like some case goods, I think it was, or a permit, I don't remember what it was, but basically delayed us another 2 weeks and we couldn't open. And so we had to actually walk several guests that had booked with us. We either had to cancel their reservation and we were walking some people to other hotels because, we couldn't we couldn't legally have them in our, we didn't have the certificate of occupancy basically.
That was so frustrating.
It was pretty painful.
Poor Molly had to make those calls. And
Molly Folsom. She's awesome.
One person was like, "This is our honeymoon. You've ruined our wedding day." And,
you ruined my life.
Quite sad that had to happen. But
Molly Folsom, she is like, she's consulted and helped us on our marketing and influencer program, social media, stuff like that. Pretty much since Springboard got engaged with us. But she's awesome. And she had to make all these just like terrible phone calls for us. She just volunteered to do it. I guess she's like, actually, I remember her saying something like she loves crisis mode or something. I was like, you're a better person than me, because I'd feel so bad. And she handled it.
I think she needed a personal day after all the abuse she went through.
Yeah. But we finally got open. Finally in July, 1st of July. I remember the last, it was probably like 2 or 3 weeks, maybe more, I don't know. But before that, you and I were out there like hanging signs, like these big letter signs out in the pool side. We were like painting walls.
Yep.
There was a lot of stuff.
Making rooms, building furniture, putting furniture together.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember frantically putting beds together in rooms, and like, cause we had an inspection with the health inspector, and it was like, they're coming tomorrow and we need every single room ready. And like we didn't have the staff to do it. And so Dustin, myself, my wife, my kids, his kids, everybody was out there just like making beds, folding sheets, like whatever we had to do.
Yeah. There were still like fixtures that needed to be installed before the health inspector would pass us. And so she's like walking through the building, and we're like 2 rooms ahead of her, like screwing in these bathroom fixtures and trying to make it ready for her.
We were like telling our team,
quite exciting.
Our general manager were like, distract her till we can get this one done, like, stuff like that. So, but it was a whirlwind. Those last few weeks, especially, was like just chaos, just trying to get everything done. But we did it. There was a lot of, in hindsight, that whole like construction and process after we acquired the property and then until we reopened as the Ozarker, I think, there was several like fun parts of it, like where we got to do some fun things. I think one of the things I thought was fun was like the found objects and art and like that type of decor you and I got to source.
Yeah.
That was probably one of the more fun.
Spent a lot of time in antique shops.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had to source like original art and found objects for all the rooms. So that ended up being like 500-600 items. And so we did our best. And then the interior design team got into town and they cleaned up for us.
I remember they were I think they only shopped for like maybe a day and a half, but like they had a haul, man.
Yeah.
Like, I remember the whole lobby was just spread out with just like art everywhere and like all these random objects, and they had chosen all the cool stuff. But
it made for a really cool end product. So every room is unique. And,
and they actually this group also we're talking about is Perini. They're based out of Detroit, interior design group. But I remember Amy and Christine, they were just like, even like they not only went and found all the art with their team, but they also came back and were like trying to organize it in a way and like place it in a way where it like, looked good visually on the wall. And like, pairing objects together where that made sense and kind of balanced out each other and all that. But they did a killer job on the design of all the spaces. And then, they would definitely went above and beyond in that final stretch, to kind of bring it all home. Cause we were way far back. We weren't as far ahead as we thought we were on the art. Cause you and I were like, we went probably a handful of times, half a dozen times maybe to some antique stores and bought some stuff, but they were just like,
Well, it felt like a ton of things that we had found. We were so excited. Then we actually counted it up and it was like a fourth of what we needed.
Could fill up like 5 rooms or something. Yeah. It's like, oh yeah. So it ended up being awesome. And there's a lot of really cool, the decor and art and everything is really just fun to look at the Ozarker. So that was a highlight for sure. But yeah,
what would you say? What was it like having the owner hat and the creative agency hat on the same project?
yeah, I think about that, and I talk about that a lot with people. I think it's a few different things happened. I think through that process, I think I realized I'd already, just through Longitude and some other businesses, we've been involved in. I understood like what it takes to be an owner and an entrepreneur. But the translation of like, what we do at Longitude for our clients and kind of the strategies and approach that we preach through Longitude, so to speak, it gave us an opportunity to really practice that through this journey, and also see what works and see what doesn't, and see, do these things that we do and we talk about, does it matter really, or does it not? And I think, some things that come to mind, we talk a lot about with our clients at Longitude is, just as early as possible in a hotel development or, a repositioning. Like if someone's buying a property and they're planning to reposition it, or if they're getting ready to build a property and build a new brand, like as early as possible, start the brand discussion. If nothing else, just for, again, getting your thoughts that might be swirling around, all these different ideas, getting them on paper, thinking through some of those preliminary questions about like, what's this property meant to be? What's the opportunity? Who's the market? How do we want to be positioned in this market? Who are the other players in this market? All these types of questions. And then you get into the fun stuff eventually, where it's like, what's the identity? What's the name? What kind of design do we want to have? What's the mood board? All these different pieces. But the earlier you start those discussions, I think I was able to like re-solidify, like, okay, this is actually really important. Because we saw that for the Ozarker. Like you and I dialed that in very, very early on. And probably, within after we found the property the first time, and probably within the first 60 days of that, after we found it, like we probably had like 90% of the Ozarker dialed in by that point, like the brand and like the story and like what it's the product and what it's going to be. And so what happened after that was, once we began onboarding other partners, once we began conversations with investors, with lenders, with management partners, interior design team, architect, general contract, like all these different people we were bringing on to the team, we had this deck that was just explained it perfectly to them, and they like got up to speed very quick, and they're like, oh yeah, I totally get it. And there wasn't any ambiguity with it. There wasn't any confusion. It was very, very clear. And so that was probably one of the more like super helpful things I think as an owner is necessary. I know some owners, believe that. I think some people devalue the importance of that. And another thing I think too is just like realizing what goes into a hotel. Like you and I, before we became hotel owners ourselves, like I think I didn't really appreciate or know like everything that has to go into a development, all the different hurdles, all the different points in a project where it can stall, where things might not work out or it might get delayed or whatever. And so just seeing the behind the scenes of that now, like when we get like a client who reaches out to us and they're like, hey, we really want to work with you guys. And then we don't hear from them for 6 months because their project might get delayed. Like that used to frustrate me or just like, discourage me. But now I'm like, I totally get it. Like I have empathy for you. Like, yeah, it gives me a better appreciation for the clients we work with and kind of where they're at and their concerns. So those are just some of the things I kind of learned, but I don't know. What do you think as far as like wearing the owner hat?
Yeah, I would definitely echo. Just like there was a lot of stuff that we thought we knew, but without actually implementing it for ourselves, you can't fully know. And so getting to practice what we've been preaching from a brand standpoint was really cool, just to see the impact And we get questions a lot of times from customers or clients and asking like, when should I start? Here's kind of where we're at in the process. When should I start thinking about branding? And with all the confidence in the world, now we can say like last month, like it's never too early to start thinking about what the brand is and the story that you're trying to convey, because it does affect like every decision that you make. The people that you're bringing in to help, they need that clear vision. And so I think that was a really cool thing that came out of this, was just kind of learning that lesson firsthand. It was also cool. Like there's a lot of times when we're working with a client and we're like, oh man, it'd be cool if they did this. And then we kind of pitch it and it's like, it's not, they don't really see the vision for it, or there's a budgetary constraint or something. And so one of the things that I was hoping that we could do with this project is just like, if there's a cool idea that any of us come up with, let's make it happen. And let's, figure out how to make the money work, because we were definitely tight on budget. Everything came in more expensive than we had anticipated. So we did not have unlimited funds, but we had unlimited creativity to pull off things. And I think about the Wagoneer that early in the discussion, we're like, man, what's the brand vehicle for the Ozarker Lodge? Like what embodies the spirit? And we settled on a 1980s Jeep Grand Wagoneer. We were like, oh man, it'd be cool to have like a branded version sitting in front of the property where people could take their pictures, and it just kind of sets the tone. So we were pretty excited about that. But once the construction budget came back, it's like, we do not have money for a Wagoneer.
Yeah, because at that time, like to get like a nicely redone Wagoneer of that time frame, I mean, you're going to spend easily, $20,000 to $30,000.
Yeah,
we're like, yeah, we don't. We still need beds, and
so as cool
pillows.
As we thought that idea was, it just didn't seem possible. But Jeremy is a make it happen guy. And so he found one, and he's like, hey, it's in really rough shape, but I think I could whip it into something cool. And we were all just like, not sure. And then next thing we know, he's like got it on a trailer, bringing it home. And he's like, I'm just going to buy it and we'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
So he bought it and started refinishing it in his garage, and it turned out amazing. And
just don't look too closely.
It all worked out. But
yeah, I remember. When we had decided like what the brand vehicle was, again, early on, like we were kind of having these brand decisions and discussions. And so pretty much immediately after that, I just started like looking around for Wagoneers and on Facebook Marketplace and just other places. And, it was like slim pickings. Like I said, I mean, unless you wanted to spend like $30,000 for one that's already been completely redone, like there was nothing really available. And then all of a sudden this one popped up. Like Dustin said, it was in very rough condition, at least like on the outside, but it ran and the interior was okay. But it was such a good deal. I was like, I can't pass this up. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to buy it, figure it out later. We'll figure out the details later. But yeah, so I painted it myself in my garage. I, did my best to restore I fixed some lights on it, some more like aesthetic kind of exterior stuff. And we finally got the vinyl on it. We got the wood paneling, the classic wood paneling on it, and the logo. And now it sits outside the Ozarker. Yeah, and it's one of our like Instagrammable moments. I think that's probably one of the places at the property that gets the most photos in front of it, I would say.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was definitely something, like wearing an owner hat, being able to just like make that decision.
Yeah.
Of like, I'm just going to do it, even though it doesn't make financial sense probably right now.
Yeah.
Like it just needs to happen. So we made it happen. That was fun though.
Yeah. I think another thing that I came to value was just when you select a partner for a project like this, it makes such a difference if they take ownership. And we worked with a lot of people bringing this thing to pass. And there were some that were just treating it like another project. You know, it's just their job, and they'll do what they can. And you know, there's a cap on what they can do. And then there were some partners who you really felt like they were invested.
Yeah.
And with being under such a tight time constraint, like literally every hour mattered. And the partners that we had that were going above and beyond to make the project successful and to hit the deadlines, like that was just so refreshing and so endearing.
Yeah.
And so I think as a branding agency owner, I'll never forget that feeling of being an owner, relying on somebody to do something and just seeing them go above and beyond to make it happen is like, it's priceless.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it gave us, I think, a renewed, responsibility, I guess I would say, to our existing and future clients of like, we already kind of had this approach to begin with, but I think it just codified it even more in our minds is like, how can we truly be partnership mindset to our clients and like provide immense value to them? Hopefully leave them with feeling like we over delivered and did everything we can to like make their business successful. And so, like Dustin said, like there was a lot of people that did that, on our project team for the Ozarker, and those people, like I'll refer them all day long. I'll give any sort of recommendation or review they want. Like they're just great people, and I'm sure they know who they are if they're listening to this. But I think the project team is so important, and really surrounding yourself with people that get it, that want to be there, that aren't afraid to not have the answers but figure it out, and get creative with it and crafty with it. I think those are the types of people for something like what we did, at least, that you want on your team. So it was a whirlwind from all the way up till July 1st, and it's still kind of been a little bit of a whirlwind since we opened.
So we're about a little over a year into this. How's it been going?
It's been going pretty well, I would say. It was a little bit of a rocky start. I think we got a late start in the booking window for the busy season. So we didn't really get to capture as much of July busy season as we'd like. August, September in Branson is historically a fairly low like occupancy season. So, we didn't see a lot of traction there. But once we hit October, November, December, I think we were all pretty surprised in 2023 with the last quarter of the year, and just how much, how well we did for being a brand new property with like zero presence hardly. And, we're still trying to like ramp up. But we ended 2023 on a really high note. October, November, December were awesome. Holidays, fall, winter, all the different, stuff you have through all that, and the decorations and all that. It was just it was a highlight. But this year is our first calendar year, actual full January through December. I think January and February was kind of to be expected, because it's like the slowest season in Branson is January and February. So we weren't surprised. I mean, we always wish it'd be a little bit better, but we weren't surprised with it being very low. But basically, at this point, we're tracking on. I think we're actually tracking over what we were on budget on revenue. And we've just had a lot of great. We've tried a lot of things. We've tested. We've learned what works, learned what doesn't. There was things that we've tried, such as different loyalty programs, different technology, different campaigns with marketing and sales and influencers, even things on property like, testing out different types of breakfast options, doing, more higher end breakfast, but also trying like more of a traditional kind of continental breakfast, but still kind of elevated. Trying lots of, we're doing all sorts of ideas with programming, events, activities on the property. But a lot of it is just learning at this point and trying to see what resonates with the guests, what resonates with the market. And even still, you and I think, have our little kind of pet projects like we did through the construction phase. We had our own little kind of pet projects through that we just, wanted to do. But even in the operations side, we still have things where it's like, like my wife and I and my mom, actually, we did a couple events last year called Mini Makers. And it was basically like a little quarterly event where we do a craft, we do a little dessert, and like all the kids and families go in there and they make it with us, and they learn how to make a cupcake and do a craft or something like that. So it was like a thing that I wanted to do just because I thought that it would resonate with our guests and families, and it went really well. So we're always trying and testing new things. So that's been really just a fun and rewarding and learning experience for us too. And I think wearing the owner hat again, like as a branding guy and a design guy, you and I think we always have a lot of ideas. And for clients, sometimes, like you said, we can do those ideas, sometimes not. But when you're the owner, especially if you can get creative with, not making it like a large expense, I think you have a lot more freedom and leeway to just try it, see what works. And if it works well, keep doing it. If it doesn't, don't do it anymore. But yeah, I think this year has been an outstanding year for our first calendar year.
Yeah.
As a property, and it's exceeded, I think, everyone's expectations.
Yeah, it's been really cool just to see the response from guests. And you have an idea, you think it's a good idea, but you don't really know until you get that feedback and people try things and try it out for themselves. And just reading reviews and overhearing conversations in the lobby and seeing people playing the games and sitting around the fire making s'mores. Like, it's just really neat to see it resonate with folks and just become like one of the cool places in the area. So,
and we've part of the learning too, part of the learning that we've had as well, just even on the ops side, just like really dialing that in, getting our team in the right place. And now we have like a rock star general manager, I think. Chris, he's doing a great job there. We got Jordan there doing sales. We got Ted doing the food and beverage. Sophia doing, barista front desk and kind of overseeing that. And it's just, Jeff on the maintenance side. And, I think we have a really great team that's just really knocking it out of the park at the property. And there's been a lot of improvements, especially since, about June or so. And through that, like June and July are kind of a testing of like a property, so to speak. It's like, cause you're literally like every single weekend is sold out. It's it's madness.
Yeah. Almost
June
every
and July.
day.
And it's like, even throughout the week, you're like, 80, 90% occupancy through those weeks. So it's really like trial by fire, and like you have to like just make stuff happen. And our team is like went through that season very, very well. So I think we've hit our stride. I'm very, very hopeful, and that we're gonna keep exceeding expectations, hopefully. And I've definitely been grateful to be a part of this project and learn what we've learned. And I think looking ahead, we've kind of briefly mentioned it a couple of times, but since opening the Ozarker, actually, with Steven and Eric again, we are partners with them on another property out in Denver. We don't have to talk about that too much, but it's just we've become 2-time hotel owners, so to speak. And, Dustin and I are definitely still very much invested in Longitude and day to day, like we still operate that. And, serve our guests or serve our clients as best we can. But on the other side of it too, we're always looking for another property. We're always looking for another opportunity. I think I could probably speak for both of us. I remember you and I saying a few times throughout that process, like after going through this, we're either going to like love it and want to do it again, or we're going to hate it and never want to do it again.
Yeah.
And I think speaking for both of us, I think there are obviously difficult parts, but overall, I think we loved it. I think we see the potential, especially like you mentioned early on, in the Ozarks, in the Midwest, flyover country. That's kind of where our heart is and where we want to really invest. And so, we're I think that's kind of, next topic, I guess, like what's the future of the Ozarker, of Longitude, kind of like what are you excited about, I guess, in the upcoming future?
Yeah. Yeah. We try to end every episode with the question is like, as you look to the future, what excites you? So for me, I would say, continuing to partner with hotel operators, management companies, and using the experience that we've gained through this process to be able to add just an immense amount of value. Just the cool concepts they're coming forward now, just being involved in those and in whatever capacity we can is really exciting to me. And just the industry as a whole, as it kind of continues on this path of uniqueness and just finding little niche, like whether it's glamping, outdoors, focused hospitality, or more like themes, just as people continue to search out and reward like unique products. It's a very fun space to be in. So I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about whatever other opportunities we can come across that are like this. I'm personally very excited about properties and hospitality experiences that kind of embrace nature through like agritourism and just the ability to fish, hunt, get outside, do all of that type of stuff. So that's kind of where my mind is at and what I'm excited about.
Yeah, I would agree. As far as like things I'm excited about too, kind of on all fronts, I think there's still a lot of things and improvements on the Longitude side that we would like to make. You and I are kind of in discussions about, kind of what the next season of Longitude looks like and improvements we're going to be making, through all of that. And also just like you, I have a particular passion and joy about like these more outdoor adventure, get people outside, get them active, enjoy nature type of properties. So a kind of a dream project for me that I'm still like, one day I hope to do a project like this is just like a fishing lodge somewhere. And so that's something that I think it would live in the family brand of brands of the Ozarker, as long as it was in the Ozarks. But I think it's something that would be really fun, and I enjoy fishing. So, I'm always looking for the next deal, always looking for the next opportunity. I like every week there's a new opportunity that comes across my desk, and it's just, looking at it, going to visit the property, do some underwriting, and, a lot of deals just might not pencil out or might not be a good fit for us. And, maybe we just don't feel comfortable with it, but, I think one will happen and we'll be looking for that next one. And, I think it's just going to add to our, like to our, I don't know what the saying is, but, just add to our knowledge basically of like, how can we better serve our clients through Longitude? How can we be better hotel owners? How can we be better partners? How can we, add value and do better things for the world that we live in? And, that's my goal, is just to make the place that I live better, to add value to communities, to hopefully give back in some capacity to help others. And, hospitality in this category and the mindset of hospitality is a great way to do that. And it's, for a lot of people in the hospitality industry, it comes kind of naturally. And I think that's one way that I think hospitality can change the world, really. I mean, just the way that we treat people, the value that we give, the things that we do to make our world better. I think this industry, almost better than any other industry, is well suited to do that. So eager to have more people on our podcast that do that. We've had a lot of great guests in the past, and this is kind of a reboot to that, to our podcast. So if you guys know anybody that should be on this podcast, definitely email us and reach out to us. We'd love to have them on. But yeah, anything else we need to cover before we...
No, I think that sums it up nicely. Thank you all for listening to our story, and hope that was enjoyable.
Yeah. And if you'd like to read more about the Ozarker and the project we went through and kind of the endeavors and behind the scenes, there's a few ways you can stay in touch and reach out to us. Obviously, you can visit the ozarkerlodge.com. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook. We're getting ready to set up a new TikTok page hopefully soon, so you can follow us on that if you'd like. Longitude, longitudebranding.com. You can stay in touch with us, join our email list. And we'd love to just have you guys stay in touch with us, reach out if you'd like. My email is jeremy@longitudebranding.com. You can shoot me an email directly if you have a new project or just need help or some thoughts on something. We'd love to talk with you. But yeah, this is, again, kind of a new season for Future Hospitality. We've entered several new seasons over the last couple of years, so we're excited to share some of our new knowledge with you guys and have knowledge on from other guests and just get some more exciting people on here that you can learn from. So appreciate you guys joining us. And until next time, we'll see you around.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Future Hospitality Podcast. If you enjoyed today's topic and episode, please leave us a review. If you'd like to learn more about Longitude, you can visit longitudebranding.com to see our portfolio of design work, read our Insights blog, and learn more about our team. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for Longitude Branding.